Today is the day. Chivalry 2 has been released on Steam, finally. For those of us that have been playing Chivalry 2 for the past year, had to install the Epic Store launcher thing, and no one really likes it. There's no privacy options with it. Yada yada yada. I could go on about that. This video isn't about the Epic Game Store, it's about Chivalry 2 and my review about it. Now initially I was going to do a review, like an in-depth Chivalry 2 review, and I realized that the game's been out for so long now that everyone pretty much knows what it is, except for the people on Steam that have been sleeping on it, you know? Or like the people that don't play this genre of game. And they're gonna see this probably on the front page today. So that's who the video is directed to. It's not directed to the Shiv community. It's not directed to the Mordhau community, which they already have their strong opinions on this game. Honestly, this video could be 15 seconds long minus the intro. I could just say, Chivalry 2 is worth the buy, especially it's 40% off on release on Steam. Like, you can't go wrong getting it. Pick it up. If you don't like it within the 2-hour mark, just refund it on Steam. Jump into a 64-player match. Skip the tutorial if you want. The tutorial doesn't teach you anything, really. All you really need to know is hold right-click to block. Your stamina will drain. It doesn't cost stamina to attack, which is left-click. And if you run around in a 64-player match and you find all the chaotic, wonderful, blood, gore, entertaining, then keep playing. Stick around because they keep updating the game. Today, June 12th, is not only Steam release day for Chivalry 2, it's also one of the biggest updates they've ever released to us, called the Penosian Invasion update, which is bringing us a whole new pile of content for free, desert themed, and a whole new faction. So it's just like they keep updating for free. Their monetization for the skins and everything is not predatory. There's some like skins that you can unlock without giving money directly to Torn Banner, but it's whatever. Like, you don't need those skins. You can unlock like 95% of everything in the game just by playing it. And if you're new to the hack and slash genre, this is gonna be tough for you because I'll be honest, if you're new to the genre, you're gonna have a hard time because this is like a very niche type of game, and I've been aware of it since Chivalry 1, then Mordhau I played for a bit, but I couldn't really get into it, and then Chivalry 2 I've played the heck out of. So the problem with that is that all the new people coming to the genre, to the game I should say, they're going to be going up against a bunch of sweat lords that have put, you know, thousands of hours into this game. Even though it's only been out for a year, a lot of them have played the open beta for quite a while as well. So there's, you know, the hidden hour effect happening there. But I mean, you have beginner mode where most of the players in the game are bots. I think I'm Canadian, so the price of the game is $24. So in the US, it's probably cheaper than that. For 20 bucks, that one game mode alone, if you just want to lop some heads off and enjoy the combat mechanics of this game, it's well worth it just for that one game mode. You have free-for-all, where it's everyone versus everyone, and it's fun. People will have a lot of fun in that game mode, just, you know, goofing around, or some people take it seriously and try to get to the first place before the round's over. They try to win, I mean. And then you have 64-player mode and 40-person mode, which is a mix of team objective and team deathmatch. Team deathmatch is pretty straightforward. It's just whoever runs out of tickets first loses. And team objective map is kind of like a more immersive experience where, you know, first you take over the village and then capture the town square, and then you fight on a bridge, and then you get to the very end, and if the attacking team completes all the objectives, then that's the team that wins the game. Anyways, if you haven't heard of Mordhau, it's a game that was created by Civ 1 veterans, and the combat is more complicated and more complex and more competitive, but it's also very hard to get into. So for the average player jumping into the genre, Mordhau it's not the best idea. Chivalry 2, for someone who's never even played it before, is really easy. Just, you know, how hard is it to hold right click to block, and then it just takes practice to get some of the timing down and learning some of how the mechanics work. It's not that complicated at all, and I think Torn Banner did a great job by simplifying the combat, but also the skill ceiling is pretty high for the players out there that want to play at a higher level. So for the average scrub like you and me, there's plenty of fun to be had, and if you're like a sweaty McSweaterson, you can really go to the top and, you know, time your counters and like switch to a blunt weapon if you see a knight because it does more damage, and master your footwork and timing on counters so that you never lose stamina. I mean, you could really take this game super seriously if you wanted to, but I don't think that's where the game shines. I think the game shines for the casual player, except for when they get stuck in a match with a bunch of veterans on one side and a bunch of noobs on the other. And that's one of the problems with the game that still exists today. And I think it's fair just to mention it to those of you who don't know about it. But basically, when you join a game, when you join a server, like a 64 player match, for example, and it's a team objective map, most of the players will switch to one side, and that's called team stacking. And it's a mix. I'm sure there's many reasons why people do it. There's not just one reason, but one of the reasons is they don't want to lose. So they will switch to the side with the higher level players on it. The other reason, I'm kind of guilty of it as well, as I like to play attack most of the time, just because the defenders have a longer respawn timer. So every time I die and I'm trying to get footage, it takes longer for me to get the footage I need. And also, when you're playing attack and you're capturing objectives, there's like a sense of progression. You get to progress in the map. Whereas if you're a defender and you successfully defend one of the objectives, then the round's over. You don't get to see the rest of the map. And I just prefer attack. There's also an arena mode, which is 1v1. There's a bunch of silly modes in the server browser that no one plays anymore because no one goes to the server browser apparently, like Brawl and Elimination. Brawl is just, you go to a special part of the map that's customized with like silly items like brooms and like goblets, chicken pieces, and you just beat the shit out of each other with your fists. Not quite sure why that's not on the main launch page, but I guess that's just, it's a silly game mode. The elimination mode, however, is like last team standing, or last man standing, I should say. And it's a team deathmatch, but when you die, you have to wait for the round to be over. And I also believe the free-for-all mode got moved to the server browser, so that's probably going to die out too. I think all we're going to have on the main page now is arena, beginner mode, and 64 players versus 64 and 40 versus 40. Which, like I said earlier, it's a mix of team objective maps and team deathmatch maps. Again, just so everyone knows, coming into this game, the parry, which is block, doesn't quite work all the time. It's a little buggy. They're always tweaking it. There are some overpowered weapons like the two-handed spear, which is a super long weapon that, without getting into detail, in layman's terms, it's just you can like do a stab attack and then drag your mouse cursor into your enemy and it goes behind their block, and it's just really annoying. And everyone complains about the Highland sword, which is like this giant anime-looking sword that just clears up the battlefield. But it's not as easy as everyone says it is, and I do have to admit though, like a 12-foot sword, the width of like a male torso is pretty OP, but it's, it is what it is. There's not too much wrong with the game other than that. They've just added horses, so I'm assuming it's gonna be buggy because I played the public test of the horses and it was a little bit buggy, but it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad they're adding new mechanics and content to the game like horses and new factions and stuff like that. All in all, honestly, for 20 bucks or whatever, it's definitely like a must buy, especially if you're interested at all in like a turn your brain off after work and just start swinging a sword around and enjoying all the silliness that the voice lines have to offer and stuff like that. It's worth it. And again, just to, in closing, I know this isn't as in-depth as Mordhau. Like the customization options for your characters isn't as in-depth. You kind of just have to pick armor sets and weapon skins and a couple voice lines to play with, and your heraldry, which is like a logo that sometimes shows up on certain armors. Some armors, like, you just can't put heraldry on it, which is unfortunate. But I mean, that's stuff that they're all gonna fix. And they're constantly adding new armors and weapon skins to keep the variety nice and fresh for everyone. There are some cross-play issues that are being resolved in this update and the next update, which is 2.6 reinforced update, I believe. So we'll see if that works, but right now we can't play with console players. We can't party up with them. But with the release today on June 12th, apparently the console players are able to go to the server browser. They're able to party with us now. There's quite a few maps as well. The scenery's nice. That should be enough info for you guys to figure out if you want to try Chivalry 2 or not. Again, it's on Steam. You can play it for 2 hours and then return it and get all your money back. I suggest you just, again, jump into a 64-player match for about an hour and just see how it goes. If it's fun in any way, I promise you'll keep playing, you'll get better, and you'll enjoy the fuck out of this game. It's a lot of fun. There's nothing out there like it right now, except for maybe Bannerlord, and Bannerlord it doesn't have combat mechanics like this game does. And Mordhau is just, for the average person, it's just too complicated and difficult. And the Sweat Lords over there are unbelievably difficult to fight. Whereas here, you're getting a ton of fresh new faces from Steam. You'll have more shots. There's a beginner's mode where you can just kill bots all day. as well as other players in those matches, and I think you're gonna find yourself a great little game. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped some of you out decide if you're gonna pick up the game or not. Be sure to subscribe. I do a lot of Chivalry 2 content as I'm in love with this game and I think it's fantastic, and I'll catch you guys on the battlefield.